Thank you very much for joining us for this evening's webinar, Cybercrime, Are You the Next Victim? With special guest Sandra Putnam with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and Tina Freestone, Chair of the Criminal Justice Degree Program at Grantham University. Today's webinar with Sandra Putnam will focus on cybercrime and the associated effects of this growing epidemic. Sandra Putnam is the Assistant Special Agent in charge in the Child Exploitation and the Computer Crimes Unit with the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Ms. Putnam is a certified fraud examiner, a certified information forensics investigator, a certified forensic computer examiner, and a post-certified instructor for law enforcement in the state of Georgia. She has expertise working computer crimes and white-collar crime cases, including cases involving theft, money laundering, tax fraud, and political corruption. Now that I have taken you through the introduction portion of this webinar, why not I turn the mic over to our featured guest, Sandra Putnam. Sandra?
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate the invitation. Well, first, I wanted to tell everybody that to kind of give you an understanding of cybercrime, we're going to kind of go in what cybercrime is, but the way cybercrime has become an epidemic over the last century. Norton does a cybercrime report every year, and these are some of the statistics that came off this year's report. And basically the report came out and said that now there's over 431 adult victims globally, and that there's losses of over $388 billion. Now this is time and money. So in other words, if you think about it, if you're on your computer or your smartphone and you're trying to do your schoolwork through Grantham, if something happened and somebody hacked in or did a denial of service attack on Grantham University servers, those servers would go down and cause your time of not being able to submit assignments and stuff like that. So if you can think about it on a bigger end, on corporations, you have these larger corporations, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, AT&T. Anytime they have some sort of cybercrime incident and their systems are taken down, that is money and time lost that they are not getting because their systems are taken down. And we also have to remember when we're talking about cybercrime that cybercrime goes beyond the computer screen that you're looking at right now. When we think about the internet and what the internet is global. It is worldwide. It is computers that are connected through in all different countries: China, Germany, South America, the United States. So when we're talking about cybercrime, we're talking about a global epidemic. And right now, Norton's, one of their reports came out and said that 14 adults become a victim every second. And this is absolutely staggering because most often than not, you really don't know when you're an actual victim. A lot of times we we think that we can get a computer, hook it up to the internet, and then we're on and we're going strong. Then you go out and you buy you a router, because then you buy a laptop, or you might have an iPad or a smartphone that you want to hook up. So you go and buy a wireless router. Well, the default for wireless routers are where it's not password protected. So a lot of times people will actually jump on your wireless network to have internet service. One of the most common type of cybercrimes is computer viruses and malware. A lot of times you hear everybody stress about security and how important security is. And everybody probably has something like McAfee and Norton's on their computer. But what happens is a lot of times there's what's called zero-day viruses and malware that gets disseminated out there where, remember, Norton's, McAfee, any type of antivirus software can only work after a virus has been detected and a patch or a fix can be created by another programmer. So a lot of times that your computer can get infected with different type of viruses and malware and spyware, and you might have those viruses and malware on your computer even if you are protected by Norton's or McAfee or Symantec, but you don't know it because Norton's is not aware that the virus exists yet. And then maybe 30 days later, when you do an update to your virus protection, at that point the Norton's will identify and detect some sort of spyware, malware on your computer, notify you, and erase it. So a lot of times we don't even know when we're being victimized. Another thing that I read that was really interesting in this report is that cybercrime usually costs, like we said, over $114 billion. But one of the more interesting thing is that according to the report, more than 2/3 of online adults, 69%, have been victims at some point, resulting in more than 1 million cybercrime victims a day. So that's absolutely staggering. And I know that we're talking globally here, so let's look at one statistics about the United States. And that showed that over the last year, over 74 million people in the United States alone were cybercrime victims. And the United States actually suffered $32 billion in direct financial losses. So those are just some staggering figures that it's just a growing threat that all of us need to be aware of. So let's go and look and see and talk exactly about what cybercrime is. So if we'll proceed to the next, when we talk about cybercrime, we're not just talking about crimes that happen over a computer. We usually define cybercrime as computers that are being used to commit a crime, computers that are the target of a crime, and computers storing evidence of a crime that has been committed. So let's look at the computers being used to commit crime. These are going to be computers that are used in situations where viruses are created and disseminated, where somebody is actually using a computer to do a denial of service attack, which is trying to hit a website multiple times and taking that website down. If we look at computers as the target of a crime, then that might be a situation where we are actually the target, where our computer has received a virus or some sort of spyware or malware, or the target where somebody is trying to actually hack into a computer. I know working for the state of Georgia, one of the cases that we worked was an ex-employee with our Department of Driver Services who he had been fired and terminated, but the IT department failed to take away his credentials for access into the network. What happened is that next day he targeted the Department of Driver Service main central server that contained all of the driver's license information for people in the state of Georgia. He went in, accessed, specifically targeted that one computer that housed all the driver's license information, and threw in numerous types of viruses, worms, in order to try to corrupt it, to corrupt the data. So that is an example where computers are the actual target of a crime. Computers storing evidence of a crime. If we can go back and look at how computers store evidence of a crime that's been committed. A lot of times people don't think that a computer is an excellent repository of evidence. Even though you might be investigating and working a theft case, a homicide case, a prostitution case, human trafficking, a lot of times the evidence is going to be stored on that computer. So we always encourage people. We've worked numerous homicide cases where we actually went in and did forensics on the computer and pulled out information where that individual went in and typed in, like say Google or a search engine, how can I kill my wife and get away with it? Those were the exact search terms that were used. That is excellent circumstantial evidence to be able to support the physical evidence of that crime. Another example is in drug cases, drug investigations. Once you work your way up from the frontline street dealer to the person who is actually disseminating the drugs, it's amazing, just like you today, how much, think about how much you use your computer. Well, criminals use the computer in the same aspect. They have contact lists, phone numbers. They'll even have spreadsheets of the type of drugs that they're dealing and what type of income is associated with that. So those are all great, great evidence that can be pulled off to support a different type of investigation. So some of the different types of cybercrime that are out there, we got to look at our traditional crimes. Child pornography, human trafficking, identity theft, drugs, harassment, fraud, white-collar crime, murder, and theft. Those are all traditional crimes that 20 years ago, you would not have any type of association with a computer. And so, you know, back then, 10, 20 years ago, the child pornography was actually mailed. They were on big VHS tapes and sent to people through the mail. But with the advent of computers and with technology, people can now utilize technology to actually perpetrate these traditional type crimes. One of the challenges of law enforcement is to actually update case law and statutes, criminal code, to reflect these traditional crimes that can be perpetrated now using technology. Now, some of the technological crimes that are out there that have been actually created because of the advent of technology is stuff like the viruses, malware, hacking, denial of service attacks, copyright violations. This is a huge one. Everybody can remember back in the day when there was Napster and everybody would go online and share music. Well, if you think about it, if I bought a song or I put a song out there on my peer-to-peer where anybody could go out there and get it for free, you know, we're actually, you know, violating that songwriter's funds of people having to actually go out and buy the music. So Napster was actually taken down. We're seeing a lot of copyright violations now dealing with students from middle school, high school, and now college students. It's gone beyond plagiarism to actually utilizing publishers' works in an electronic format, which constitutes copyright violations, and those are federal violations that have some extreme penalties with them. Cyber stalking. Now, you know, back from the old day where you had the perpetrator who would just go around and follow his ex-girlfriend, well, now you can stalk people online, sending them emails. If you know their cell phone, sending text messages. So you have a cyber stalking now crime that goes on. Phishing. Phishing is one of those things that a lot of people become susceptible to. Phishing is one of those type schemes where you might get that email from your bank or from a credit card company that says, hey, we're trying to update our records and we're showing that your password has been in effect for over a year, we recommend that you change your password. Please provide us your online account information. Let's say we're talking about a bank. Bank of America had a huge issue with this about 2 years ago. Please send us your Bank of America account number along with your password and then what you want your new password to be, and we'll be happy to change it for you. Well, it's amazing that a lot of people who are victimized over the computer felt like because this email said it was from Bank of America and it came through email that it had to be real. And you had millions and millions of dollars that were stolen from people from this one phishing email scam that went out there. Now, one of the largest growing epidemics that we have right now in the 21st century is sexting, and also what we like to call child-on-child crime. For those of you who might be out there who have children or teenagers, our children have grown up over the last 15 years with technology. Technology is second nature to them, but unfortunately they don't think about what they do in their actions with that technology and how that can affect them not only now but in the future 10 years from now. We have a lot of issues with those middle and high school students who you have boyfriend and girlfriend. Boyfriend says, hey, take a naked picture of you. You're beautiful. I want to see you. She takes a naked picture of herself. Well, she sends it to boyfriend. They break up 3 weeks later. He sends the picture out to the whole football team, who then sends the picture out. The picture gets uploaded on somebody's Facebook social networking site, and now you have a teenager who produced child pornography by taking a naked image of herself, exposing her genital area, her breast. So you have a juvenile that is manufacturing child pornography by the federal statute, now disseminating child pornography because she sent it to her boyfriend, who has now sent that out to 20 people. That's now gone out to 40 people, and now it's in the hands of 100,000 people because it's been uploaded to somebody's social networking site. So unfortunately, we're dealing with a huge epidemic of this sexting, which law enforcement from all over the country is having to take different stances on how to tackle this issue in their jurisdiction. Some of the challenges that law enforcement has in working these types of crimes is, if we look at now, we're dealing with computer literate criminals. So if we can proceed forward and let's look at each of the different challenges that we have. Now we're dealing with individuals who are computer literate. You know, back 10 years ago, it was only your white-collar crime, high society people that were able to afford a $1,000 computer. Now you can go to Walmart, any place, you can get a refurbished computer for under $200. So the availability of technology is out there for low or hardly no cost. Not to mention internet access. Probably where you live, if you drove around, you would find all kinds of places that offered free wireless internet. That's not going to be any charge to you to be able to use. Now we're seeing Starbucks, bookstores, there's McDonald's, a lot of restaurants and stuff will offer the internet out there, free wireless internet. Technology is pushing society into the information age. You have banks now who actually want you to not write checks anymore. They want you to have a debit card. If we polled and saw how many people actually had debit cards, I would probably guess at least 95% of you have a debit card. Now when you're going out and making purchases, or you're at the gas station, how easy is it for you just to slide that card through the gas station pump to get gas instead of having to go in and pay cash, write a check for things? So technology is pushing us into that information age, young and old, from our children now with schools getting proceeds from different entities. You're just about seeing computers in every classroom in the United States in our children, from elementary, middle to high school. You're also seeing our older generation now that is being pushed to use computers because their children and their grandchildren are on the computer. Social networking, all of this is pushing us and forcing us to use technology. Another challenge to law enforcement is who is responsible for policing the internet. I told you earlier that the internet is not just what you're looking at on your computer. The internet is made up of millions of computers that are linked together all around the world. So we have a lot of jurisdictional type issues. For example, what might be illegal in the United States might not be illegal over in the United Kingdom or in South America. So when we have those people who are perpetrating those crimes through the internet in those countries, but they're targeting American citizens, where does jurisdiction lie? What can law enforcement do about that? Another challenge to law enforcement is our training and equipment costs. Unfortunately, law enforcement has a huge learning curve when it comes to learning how these criminals use technology to perpetrate crimes. And if you've never heard the saying, technology reinvents itself every 6 months. So once law enforcement finally gets some sort of asset forfeiture costs or money from their city or county or state governments, and they purchase the latest and the greatest, and they learn how it works, they learn how to retrieve evidence off of it, the next month something new comes out. So there's a large hurdle and challenge to law enforcement to keep up as far as cybercrime and working these type of investigations. Another challenge is also evidence integrity, the physical versus the digital. Law enforcement is really good at going out and securing crime scenes and collecting physical evidence, regardless if it's DNA evidence, if it's a gun or a knife that was used. But one of the huge things that law enforcement has to understand is how to treat that digital evidence. What do I do with that cell phone that that person has that has all the images of him molesting his children? Or what can I do with the laptop or the iPad that I just took off drug dealer Dan, who has all of his frontline dealers and all of his drug information and his money information on there? What do I do with it? So you have a situation where you're really having to throw out a lot of training to law enforcement on how to handle digital evidence. Unfortunately, once something's identified as evidence, whether it's a phone, an iPad, or a computer, you can't just go and start clicking on the keyboard and trying to find what evidence that you're looking at. Because just like a knife or a gun, I'm not going to pick up a gun and shoot it, because at that point that evidence has been tainted. Well, the same holds true for digital. If I go in and I seize a computer, I can't just go and start tapping on the keyboard and moving the mouse and clicking in Windows, because at that point my evidence is now tainted. So there's a lot of challenges to law enforcement to train law enforcement on how to properly seize and keep the integrity of the evidence that's involved in any type of crime. So let's go on, and now that we've kind of thrown out some of those statistics that are out there, I kind of told you what cybercrime is. Now let's talk about how you can protect yourself or your family or your friends. You just need to understand that cybercrime exists and that you're vulnerable. From any time that you use technology, whether if you leave your house tonight or you're going to school and you have to stop by the gas station and you use that card, that gas card, and you slide it through the gas pump, do you know at that point whether or not your card was just skimmed? So you just need to understand that it exists and that you are vulnerable. Protect your computer with the latest antivirus and malware software. Your computer needs to be updated at least at a minimum every 30 days so that the new virus definitions can be downloaded so that your computer can be secure. It's also a good idea to actually get some spyware software. It's free out there on the internet so that you can actually look for spyware that's downloaded and attached to different websites or emails that you may go into. Use good passwords. What the most common password that America uses is the word password. So that is very easily socially engineered and hacked when a person uses a default password of a piece of equipment or just the word password. So make sure that you always utilize good passwords. When you're dealing with social networking sites, and this is for you, your kids, or whoever, make sure you lock it down. Any of your social networking sites, whether it's Facebook, MySpace, should only be visible to your friends. Not your friends of friends, not to all, but only your friends. Because keep in mind, any image that you upload and is on your social networking site, the test that you need to give you is the friends that you have on your social networking site. Do you feel comfortable that nobody will go open up one of your pictures of your children or of you and somehow morph that image into something illegal and post it out there in some sort of cyberbullying attempt or to deface you, your reputation, or whatnot? So always keep that in mind. Always make sure that you run an annual credit report. With technology now, with banking, the financial industry, with everybody having debit cards, credit cards, it's very easy for your identity to be stolen and you not know about it. So make sure you always run an annual credit report on yourself. And the last and one of the most important is make sure that if you get internet in your house and you put on a wireless router, that it needs to be encrypted and password protected. One of the biggest issues we have is we'll have individuals who are reported for doing some sort of crime, but they're reported via their IP address. And when we actually get out there to the house, we find out that their wireless router is totally open. I can jump on it, you can jump on it, anybody that drives by within 100 feet can jump on the wireless router and perpetrate some sort of crime. So make sure that it's password protected and that it's encrypted. And these are some of the basic steps that will go a long way in helping you to protect yourself from being a victim of cybercrime. So now I want to tell you about, I've talked to you a little bit about some of the cases that we've done, but one of the things that I want to tell you about is an ICAC case study that we worked back in 2003.
Hey Sandra, I just wanted to step in and just let you know that we wanted to open the floor for the last 5 minutes, so you have just a few minutes to go over this great case sample. So I just wanted to keep you aware of the time and thank you for everything that you're doing. You're doing a great job. This is a really great presentation and a great topic, so thank you.
Okay. Well, real quick, just to give you an example of a case that we worked, Back in 2003, we received a request from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to identify 3 unknown 4-year-old girls where there was about 200 images of them that were posted to a bulletin board on the internet. Now, the images themselves were not illegal, but they were very disturbing in the fact that the girls were often bruised, had casts on, were dressed inappropriately. So after looking at these images, we were able to determine that they were located somewhere around the central Georgia area, the Macon, Georgia area. And further investigation revealed that we were able to go in and identify these 3 girls and the suspect, who you can see here is Troy Bennett. Basically, we found out that Troy was just a family friend who watched the children while the parents were at work. He was no relative. He had just worked his way into this family, and they became very trusting of him. Unfortunately, he did molest all 3 of these little girls. You can see there a picture of his computer. That's a lot of times what you're going to get when you go into these crime scenes, is just a mess. And a forensic examination revealed more than 10,000 images of images and movies of child pornography. So he was arrested. He pled guilty, and you can see that he's sentenced to serve 200 years in Georgia State Prison, and he got chemical castration. So that was a huge win for law enforcement in this case, because now he can no longer victimize, any children that are out there. So that's all I have. Thank you very much, Joe, for allowing me the time to introduce everybody to a little bit about what cybercrime is and how they can protect themselves, and I very much appreciate it.
Sandra, I just wanted to take another moment to say thank you for your time and your participation, and thank you for this case study. I mean, as unfortunate as the situation is, it's very valuable that our attendees are aware of certain situations, and, as horrible as that situation is, it was a great win, and it's very exciting, to know that this man has been taken off the streets and there'll be no other victims. So, I mean, it's great, so thank you. Now I just wanted to open the floor for the last few minutes if anybody has any questions. I've already seen a couple questions come in. So Sandra and Tina Freestone, our chair of the Criminal Justice Degree Program here at Grantham University, we're here if you guys have any questions. And actually I see a question from Kimberly. She actually wants to know, what is the best virus software?
Well, all virus softwares are good. Any type of your Norton's, McAfee, anything like that, you just need a virus software. They're all going to have the same type of protection.
Wonderful. And then actually I have another question, which was also a question of mine. We have, what is actually chemical castration?
Chemical castration is a medical procedure where he is actually castrated, just like if you think about the how bulls are castrated. His testicles are removed, basically. That takes away from supposedly his physical desire and arousal by having his testicles removed.
All right, then. Oh, actually, I have a question for myself. With cybercrime, increasing and, it's just exploded at an astronomical rate. I know we have some parents here in the audience, and I was just wondering, is there any way that parents could step in, and, prevent their children from becoming a victim of cybercrime, especially, with all these social networking sites, form of mass communication is so readily available. What can parents do to prevent, their child from becoming a victim?
It's all about education. There's some really good resources and educational websites that are out there. You can go through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and their website is www.ncemc.org. Again, that's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they have some excellent parent resources that are out there. Another educational site that's really good is NetSmarts, and that is www.netzsmartz.com, and it's all about education. It's just educating these children to know and understand that when they use technology and it gets put out there on the internet, they can't take it away. You can't take a picture off the internet. Once it's there, it's always there.
Thank you, Sandra. That's very informative, and hopefully that is some beneficial information for our parents in the audience. Now, I have a question from Slava, and excuse me if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly, but she was actually wondering, what is the prognosis for the next few years on cybercrime?
It is only going to get worse. You have a lot of the X generation that is now coming up into the workforce, and just you have a lot of these younger generations that are very technology savvy, and they're smart, and unfortunately you have a lot of people, you know, it's a lot easier to get on and perpetrate a cybercrime online than it is to go rob a bank. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. You can be anonymous, and so it's only going to get worse.
Great. Thank you so much for that information. Again, I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone for joining us today. And Sandra, thank you so much for all your efforts. We truly appreciate it. The webinar is now coming to a close, so if we weren't able to address all the questions, or if, you know, tomorrow or the next day you have any questions, you will see Tina Freestone's email address. You know, feel free to email her whether you have questions about the criminal justice department here at Grantham University or any further questions regarding cybercrime. Tina is here for you. Again, thank you all for joining us.